All right, y'all, welcome back to Three in the Key, brought to you by Fine Bet. Me and the two coolest dudes in sports journalism break down the NBA from matchups to social media shade to fashion. I'm Daniel Tran, and unlike the British monarchy, here with me are royalty that I actually care about. First, King Sandeep Chandok in the Bay, and as always, Henry Curry, aka Prince Henny Curry in Southern California. Pandemic season 2.0 is back, man. And I have to ask everybody, what was the least surprising thing this week? Controversial judging during the slam dunk contest, or Harry and Meghan revealing that the royal institution is racist?
I'd say that's a good question. Contest. Yeah, dunk contest. That was a great opening question.
Yeah. Dunk contest. I mean, the second one, I saw that coming. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, who knew centuries of colonialism would breed racism? I had no idea.
Yeah, my reaction to that was that Alonzo Mourning gif where he's like,
yeah. All right, well, let's get to the news of this past week. We had a really surprising announcement, actually, regarding LaMarcus Aldridge. The Spurs announced that Aldridge and the team are mutually parting ways. And, looking at his stats this year, it's actually not that surprising. LA is only averaging 13.7 points per game, which is his fewest since his rookie year. And so they're looking at potential trade destinations so they could get some value back from him. So what are you thinking, guys? I am looking at these kind of destinations for him. Portland, Celtics, Heat. What do you guys think about that?
Portland.
I'd say of those three, I'd say the Celtics.
Real? Oh, okay. Okay, so we have two opposites that I thought was gonna happen. All right, so Sandeep, why do you think the Celtics?
Look, Celtics need a more consistent scoring threat outside of Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Kemba's been playing well lately. He's starting to look in his groove, but inside they don't have a consistent guy, right? Sometimes it's Tristan Thompson who'll give in like 10 to 15 points. Daniel Theis gives you like maybe 13 here and there, but they're not doing that every single night. And neither of those guys are really a threat, right, from the perimeter, even though they can occasionally step out and knock down some shots. And that's really more Theis than it is Tristan Thompson. So a guy like Aldridge, they could use another big man who can space the floor too. He can shoot the three ball if you just slot him in the corner. Good mid-range player, as we know. So I think it would give them like a more consistent scoring threat from guys outside on the perimeter.
Yeah, and Kemba Walker, he loves running that pick and roll. And with LaMarcus Aldridge, he runs that pick and pop. It's going to be pretty deadly. And then they have the just phenomenal scores, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, for people to kind of have to take into account. Henry, you said Portland pretty quickly. What is so appealing about Portland for LaMarcus Aldridge, especially after like his first stint didn't really end that well?
Well, that's the thing. Okay, for the record, I'm the Celtics fan here, and I do advocate for LaMarcus Aldridge going to Boston because we do need a big man.
Wait, you're a Celtics fan? I couldn't tell with that poster.
By the way. No, but like the reason why I said Portland so quick is because it's literally for that reason, Dan. Like LaMarcus Aldridge used to be a trailblazer, back with Nicholas Batum, Brandon Roy, and back in those days. And I think obviously he's not, the same all-star level player he used to be, but he's still LaMarcus Aldridge. I think the Trailblazers can use a big man like him, especially a person like Damian Lillard. I think they will complement each other really well to the point where I want to say it gets them over the hump for a championship, but I think it will get them farther into the playoffs. But like, yes, the Celtics need a big, and I'm like super desperate for that. By any competent big, and LaMarcus Aldridge is that. But like that's pretty much my reason. Like if he didn't have history in Portland already, then I would be like, yeah, go to the Celtics. But because of that aspect and me wanting to see Damian Lillard win a ring, and especially if that means LaMarcus Aldridge wins a ring too in Portland, then yeah, why not? So I'm trying not to be biased here, So
you're saying LaMarcus Aldridge makes the Trailblazers a championship contender.
That's why I said it doesn't necessarily. No. You don't get my words twisted. I said it doesn't necessarily get them over the hump, but it might get them farther into the playoffs. So with Jim McCollum, Damian Lillard, and Carmelo, plays solid basketball. He has his spurts. I'm like, okay, if you look at that team. Last season, they had Hassan Whiteside. He didn't really do much for the team that everybody expected. With LA back, I think they can run that pick and roll, pick and pop type of play with Damian Lillard that he's been fiending for outside of Nurkic. So I'm like, okay, you know what? That doesn't sound too bad for the Trailblazers. So I don't think they're gonna beat the Lakers. Like if you want me to say that, like I'm gonna say
You
it.
didn't need to say that for us to know
Listen,
that.
you don't have to say it. You just know what you
Yeah,
mean.
you feel me?
I'm just doing validation, but all right. Well, what about you, Dan? Like, who do you think that he can possibly go to?
Man, I actually love hearing all like I'm like a really big Heat hater when it comes to everybody be like, oh, he's gonna go to Miami, he's gonna go to Miami kind of thing. But it actually makes a lot of sense to me for Aldridge to go to Miami. We have outside of Jimmy Butler and maybe Goran Dragic, where's the scoring coming from? I mean, Bam Adebayo can't really do too much on the inside, or like as much as like maybe he can in the future. But right now, they need somebody with an automatic mid-range game that can score pretty easily, but going both shoulders and like LaMarcus Aldridge has shown. And I think that he can stretch the floor when Butler decides to go down the block too. That's a huge reason for him to go to Miami. So I think in terms of trade destinations, Miami makes a lot of sense. But I can see where, because the Celtics have that huge trade exception, that they are in a way better position to get him right now. But if everything kind of falls apart and they can't get any value for him, buyout is totally an option. And for me, I'm looking at the Western Conference when it comes to that. You have Golden State, who need more easy buckets, especially with Steph Curry kind of carrying the team. And then the Lakers, I'm just going to be the guy that, just says every free agent or every buyout option should go to the Lakers, because why the hell not at this point? They got a chance to chase a title. And then they get another floor spacing big on that team, really can't hurt them too much. So those are the two buyout options I'm looking at. What do you guys think about it?
I think the Dubs, honestly. That was the first team I thought about when they said if Aldridge is bought out, where could he end up? I was like, the Warriors. Like they could definitely use another big man. James Wiseman, obviously still a rookie, and he's playing about like 15, 20 minutes a game. Looney is more of like an undersized four, right? Mm-hmm. They could use a guy like that you can run action through too, pick and pop, like you guys have mentioned, pick and roll. He can space the floor, and if teams are like doubling Steph off screens and he's the one setting them, it's going to open up shots for him, and it would give them another consistent score. Like I said, we mentioned kind of for the Celtics, but an inside score that they're kind of lacking as well.
Yeah, Henry, what do you think between the Golden State Warriors and the Lakers for buyout options?
Okay, the Lakers don't need anybody else. You guys are good.
Like, we ain't. We're gonna get Drummond. We're gonna get Drummond.
You guys got Marc Gasol, AD, and Montrezl Harrell. Like, come on. Like, we don't have
more. You know that Kobe GIF? More.
And you guys got Jared Dudley, bro. Come on, like, y'all gotta calm down. No,
hey, listen, Jared Dudley the GOAT, but we need help.
No, but I agree with Sandeep. I want him to go to the Warriors if he's bought out. For those exact reasons. James Wiseman is a rookie. He's been playing better, from his quick turnaround from high school to not even really playing much in college to the NBA. For a 19-year-old, he's been holding his own. But at the end of the day, if you want to compete in the Western Conference, I don't think your second scoring option should be a 19-year-old rookie, So having a veteran like LaMarcus Aldridge there who has playoff experience, especially in the Western Conference, I think that'll give Steph Curry even more floor spacing. The Warriors in general, more floor spacing, because Kevin Looney provides no floor spacing at all, really. So if there's any best destination for him, being bought out, it will be the Warriors. Not the Lakers, so get that out of your head, Dan. Like that's
listen.
It's on the table.
The Lakers are in a way better position to win right now, right? I think with LaMarcus Aldridge, with the Warriors, they go from a semifinal exit to maybe a conference final exit, and that's a big maybe. So I don't think that he's going to make a championship difference with the Warriors. I think that he can ride the Lakers all the way to the championship if that's what he wanted to do. And so I guess at this point, it's all about what he wants, whether it's to reconcile his time in Portland or is it to, be a more involved piece with the Warriors or to chase championships with the Lakers. And I think those are the kind of three options that I'm kind of seeing right now. But he's not the only one where we're seeing some rumors kind of swirling around now that the trade deadline is going to come up March 25th. I mean, we got Victor Oladipo, who already got traded once this year, and he may be on the move again. I mean, I'm hearing the Knicks, I'm hearing the Heat again, and I'm hearing the Warriors that are maybe looking for him. So of those three teams, guys, what do you think is the better fit for Oladipo?
I'm gonna say the Knicks. I think the Knicks are lacking, a consistent like perimeter scoring threat as well. Julius Randle, we know, has been the catalyst of that team this year.
Oh,
Their point, their point guard rotation is, between three guys, Peyton, Rose, and Quickly. But none of those guys are really. Even Rose is like, he can be a little bit up and down, and he sits some games, and so they don't have a guy at the wing spot that's a veteran presence. He can get his own basket whenever he wants. Like RJ Barrett is not there yet. He's had some good games, but he's had like periods of time where he fails to like shoot even like 30% in a game, for 5 games in a row. And so they're lacking that consistent scoring threat, like I said. And Oladipo, I think, is looking for the team he wants to go to is going to be the team he's likely going to re-sign with, right, on a long-term extension. That's why he turned down the Rockets 2-year deals, because he's looking for, I think, like a 4 or 5 year deal.
Yep.
The Knicks could use him the most, but on the flip side, I think the Heat also make a lot of sense, because maybe that could be the piece that elevates them to take the next step and get back to the Eastern or the NBA Finals. Because last year they didn't have the talent, right? And Tyler Hero is as good as he is. If you can get Oladipo and he's willing to sign there long term, take the chance.
Yeah, Henry. I mean, I'm looking at the Heat as well, and I can imagine Jimmy Butler and Victor Oladipo guarding that perimeter. Like, that would be an insane defensive kind of backcourt, and I can see them, because Oladipo, he's not afraid of that grind. He loves that two-way kind of that two-way kind of play. So him and Jimmy kind of on the same team, I can imagine them just locking down some teams. What do you think is the better fit, though, Henry?
Just to start off, I don't think it would necessarily be the Heat, honestly, because first of all, the Pacers got rid of him because the Pacers kind of gave up on Oladipo. Like, unfortunately, it was due to his injury. If he never got injured, I believe that the Pacers would be one of the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference, if not top 2. He was on a roll, during that 2018 season, and that quad injury really turned around his progression. Hence, why the Pacers got rid of him. Hence, why it's hard for him to find stability right now. So I don't think him going to the Heat is necessarily going to give the Heat a type of, finals push that they don't already have. They have the same squad, so they have the right pieces to get them back in there. So I don't think Oladipo is necessarily their answer. Also for the Knicks, I like what's going on. I like what's going on at New York, especially, when we're talking about the Knicks. When we talk about perimeter scoring, I think if you want to, there's just too many rotational pieces where I think Tom Thibodeau is still trying to figure out the rotation. So adding Oladipo in there, I don't think that will also help that situation of like, okay, who gets how many minutes. So this is a tough one for him, because I think now he's going to be, I don't want him to be a journeyman in the NBA, because I think he's too talented for that, and we all know that. But like I said, certain circumstances like his injury halted his progression, and just him trying to get back to the Oladipo he was, and we all know he is, especially getting out of Orlando. So if I would have to pick out of those two, it would be the Knicks, because they got a good thing rolling there. And I don't think the Heat, they already know they got a lot of pieces. I mean, they're trying to get Bradley Beal, but
they got pieces. But like, that's the thing, Bradley Beal, like, as of now, looks like he's not going anywhere this season, at least, unless come next offseason he's like, all right, like, now I want to trade. It doesn't look like it's happening this year. And the Heat are still the same team, but they haven't necessarily played like the same team that they did last year in the bubble. And the East got better, right? The Nets are the Nets. The Celtics are still there. Pacers, are going to be, Karis LeVert's coming back soon. TJ Warren's coming back soon. That team's already hanging in there. Philly is atop of the Eastern Conference. So, like, if you're the Heat with your current team, like, do you feel like you're in a position where you can get back to at least the conference finals? And Pat Riley's, like, we know he's a competitor. He wants to win, and he's also a smart guy and good at evaluating talent. And when you look at the Miami Heat against the other teams in the East, their chances right now don't look good with the current roster they have, even though there's a lot of talent on that roster.
But that's what we thought last year, or at least that's what a lot of people thought last year as well, especially going into the bubble. Like, looking at teams like the Bucks, the Celtics, like the Heat were able to not only hold their own, but get past those type of teams. Let's remember also in the beginning of the season, they were struck with COVID really hard. Like that entire team was struck with COVID. So now that they're finally, recuperating from that, they're 7 of their last 10 prior to the All-Star game. So I think the Miami Heat are finally playing like Miami Heat basketball again. So it just took them a lot longer this season to get back into their groove because of COVID, unfortunately. And now they're good. They have enough pieces. They got Myers Leonard, they're fine.
Oh my God. Oh man. Oh, thankfully that whole situation kind of resolved itself. But Jesus, like what a horrific time to kind of have that happen in the middle of the season. But you don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell me twice about the Miami Heat being hurt, because I had Goran Dragic and Jimmy Butler on my fantasy team at the beginning of the season, and it was not very pretty. I mean, yeah. I was in last place for a lot of that. So because you're right. They're getting their team back. They're going to improve. They're going to play together. But hey, vote Victor Oladipo if they have a chance to get him. A guaranteed All-Star? Why not? So not only is Victor Oladipo's name been swirling around, but Andre Drummond's still out there, still available for trade. He's still sidelined too. The team is fielding trades for him, and he's sitting out. The Lakers are still in the mix for the buyouts or the Nets. And, it's kind of tough to see whether he's going to be traded or not, because he's got a $28.7 million contract that's super hard to move. And the Cavs are asking for a young player along with a draft pick. And a lot of people are saying it's most likely a second rounder, but still, that is a pretty high asking price for a guy that really didn't do much during his time with the Cavs. So where are we thinking that he's going to go even in trades? Because I'm looking at that salary and I don't see anywhere that can kind of take it on.
The only one team I think that can make a move for him via trade is the Dallas Mavericks. They need an inside presence. Their defense has not been that great, this year. Maxi Kleber is a perimeter, he's a stretch big, and he's not really much of an inside presence on defense. Cauley Stein, he's a decent shot blocker, but again, obviously none of those two guys, or even Boban or what's the guy's name? Dwight Powell. None of those guys are like Andre Drummond.
So Andre Drummond, yeah.
I could see them being maybe one of the few teams. That's the only team that really comes to mind via trade, but the buyout market will be a lot different. It's going to come down to the two teams you just mentioned, the Nets and the Lakers, obviously as a Lakers fan, we're both hoping will be the Lakers, and he could have a big role in this team. They need another center. And whether he's starting or coming off the bench, you're going to be playing for the defending champs, and you're going to have a chance to get your first ever title. Then you can get cashed out after. So I'm going to speak it into existence. Get bought out. Go to the Lakers, please.
Hey, even if he is a rental, I think that it would really benefit him to rehab his image. Obviously, he's kind of taken a beating, not only physically but mentally this kind of season. And I think that, rehabilitating yourself, going to the Lakers, buying into what they're having, getting success, and then getting paid afterwards, that, I think that works out for both parties.
Okay, wait, but did you guys hear the reports that the Lakers are interested in JaVale McGee? If that ends up happening, as Lakers fans, getting him back. I know Dan, Dan, you start off. What do you think of those reports?
I mean, those reports, I don't see them going after JaVale McGee again. If anything, they go after DeMarcus Cousins. I think they've done the JaVale McGee experiment. I think it's kind of run its course. I don't think they go back to that well. Boogie, he probably has a little more unfinished business, and I think that he can, turn whatever happened to Houston into fuel for whatever he does with the Lakers. So I think it's more Cousins is the option if things kind of fall apart than McGee.
I'm on the flip side, actually. I think I'd actually rather have probably McGee than Cousins, only because for defensive purposes. We know Boogie can score the ball. Everyone knows that. He can shoot from outside. It's great, but McGee still brings that energy. He's a high flyer. Obviously, he can catch lobs. He can run the floor still. Yeah, he has his moments where some of the maybe the mental lapses or some dumb fouls, but he's still a good shot blocking threat. And he can get you a couple blocks a game and within 10, 15 minutes on the court. So, he did, like I said, there's times where he looks good and there's times where you're all right, get him off the court. But between him and Boogie, I'd rather have McGee, but above both of them, I would rather have Andre Drummond.
That's very fair. All right, guys, moving on. We're talking about the Hall of Fame class of 2021. I mean, that thing, the finalists were just announced. And we got some pretty familiar players on there. We got one of Henry's favorites, got Paul Pierce, his first year eligible, and Chris Bosh also joining there at that first year eligibility. Dude, but the thing that I'm kind of amazed at is Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace is there, and I'm surprised that he hasn't been, inducted already, to be honest, because he anchored that legendary 2004 Bad Boys 2 defense, NBA champion, 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. That already should get him a Hall of Fame, induction. What do you guys think about this class, and who do you think gets snubbed?
This is tough because there's a lot of talent on this list. Chris Bosh, 2-time champion, done a lot obviously with the Raptors and then with the Heat. Paul Pierce, one of the greatest Celtics of all time. He's, I think, their all-time leading scorer. And then like the guy you just mentioned, Ben Wallace. I think Ben Wallace and Chris Webber, to me, are the two guys that should definitely be getting in. Ben Wallace is a top 10 defensive player of all time. And Chris Webber, he's I know he didn't get the the team accolades or anything, but he's still done a lot individually. One of the most skilled big men you have there, and I think those two guys get in for sure. It's going to be interesting with Chris Bosh and Paul Pierce because they're both first year eligible. I think we might see some of the OGs get in sooner than these younger guys.
Yeah, Henry. I mean, I'm looking at this list right now. I love Chris Bosh. I'm not sure that he gets in before Michael Cooper does. I think Michael Cooper will finally kind of get his due and will be inducted this year. We're talking about an 8-time all-defensive team selection, 5-time champion with the Lakers, and then he won a Defensive Player of the Year as a guard. We are talking about one of the top defensive players in the league ever, and I think he finally gets his due. Do you think that there's another potential snub that will happen, and who do you think it will be?
I think for potential snubs, I kept hearing so many arguments against Ben Wallace. Like Sandeep, I agree with you. He's one of the most iconic defensive presence in NBA history. He's part of that 2004 championship team. That was one of the most iconic teams because they beat your guys' Lakers when your guys' Lakers weren't in their prime, and it's kind of hard to do that because I think a lot of teams compare themselves to that specific Pistons team when they see they're like, oh, we don't have a superstar or anything like that, but we're so good, we're like that 2004 team. So I think just being part of that, and Ben Wallace was the anchor defensively, but the only argument I heard against him not being inducted was just his career stats. He averaged 5.7 points per game, 9.6 rebounds, and two blocks a game, which is defensively great, but then offensively, didn't do much, and that's the only argument against him, I guess. But in terms of snub, I think I don't really see Chris Bosh getting in before Michael Cooper because when I think of Michael Cooper, I think about all the guys he played with, Magic Johnson, Kareem, James Worthy. He was part of that
Showtime era.
That Showtime era for the Lakers. So that era in itself and that specific Lakers team, that whole stretch is filled with a bunch of legends that are more than eligible for, to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I'll be surprised if he doesn't get in before Chris Bosh because outside of the Miami Heat, Chris Bosh didn't really accomplish much. And
come on, man, he did, but individually, he did.
Individually, he was killing it in Toronto, man.
Individually, he did, and he took Toronto to the playoffs, and he was an all-star, in for the Raptors. But same thing, when LeBron, chose to go to South Beach, that's when Chris Bosh came over, and he started winning championships, and that's the whole point. I think you solidify yourself better for your Hall of Fame nod as a champion. That's why if Paul Pierce never won a championship back in 2008, I think the argument for him, outside of all his other accolades will be much harder. He never won a championship. But that's the thing, outside of, the championships that he won with behind LeBron and Dwayne Wade, what else has Chris Bosh done? In the NBA, I love Chris Bosh, but I'm just trying to keep it real with other arguments that I've heard. But what do you guys think of that?
I think that makes sense. I think we all have the same feelings about Chris Bosh as each other because this guy had his career cut short because of blood in his leg. And that's rough. He had so much more basketball to play, but we didn't get a chance to see it. Mm-hmm. To say that he's not a Hall of Famer is incorrect. To say that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't know about that.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know if that really happens because there are a lot of. I feel like there have been a lot more accomplished players that have been snubbed before him. So I think that his first time on the ballot, he's not going to get it, but he will get in eventually. Hopefully, it doesn't take as long as Michael Cooper, but he will get in eventually.
Yeah, no, I agree. Chris Bosh, like eventual Hall of Famer too. Paul Pierce is a Hall of Famer as well. I think the only reason he could possibly get snubbed is just because, like I said, because of the OGs, you know. But between him and Bosch, I'd give Paul Pierce the nod, as much as it pains me to say that.
Hey, bro, I love to hear that.
It's the truth.
Stop. You know what else is the truth? Lauren Jackson, Yolanda Griffith, the two WNBA representatives this year in the class. Lauren Jackson, 3-time WNBA MVP. I mean, I think she's like pretty much a shoo-in at this point. Yolanda Griffith might have a little more like battle to go through, only 7 All-Stars plus the MVP. But, you know, we got to acknowledge the ladies. There's also one of the coaches in here, Letta Andrews, man. Most wins by a high school basketball coach ever. And she's now eligible for the Hall of Fame. So I think that she also gets in just by those accolades as well.
I think she should get in just for that.
Right?
Yeah,
definitely. Ever.
So, I mean, aside from that, another coach that actually is up for Hall of Fame is Bill Russell, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but we have Bill Russell as a player, but he's now going to probably be inducted as a coach. If you look at those stats that he has, man, first black coach in the NBA, 2-time champion as a player coach, in which those like 2 years he was an All NBA player, 3-time All-Star, and then an All Defensive Team selection. And during those times that he was coaching, he had a 66.1% win percentage in the regular season and a 60.9 win percentage in the playoffs. That is incredible achievement, no matter who you are as a player coach. So I think that he might be a first ballot coach Hall of Fame. What do you guys think?
I think he deserves it. Like I think this one was a long time coming, especially if you look at just the context around it, being the first African American person to be a head coach in the NBA, and he started off as a player coach.
Yeah.
If that were to happen today in the NBA, the only person I can see doing that is LeBron, and like he's the GM.
He's already doing it. He's
doing everything. He does everything.
Yeah, he pretty much already does that. But like officially, like when I hear that type of stuff from Bill Russell, I think we all acknowledge everything that he's done off the court and how impactful he's been, you know, just generally beyond basketball. But when it comes to this, I think they needed to find a figure to step up as a coach because, you know, a lot of things were happening in that Celtics era. And Bill Russell was the perfect guy to do it. He led him to 2 championships. Like, what more do you need to like be inducted into the Hall of Fame as a coach? I guess the gold standard. I think this will be like a pretty good standard to be inducted as a coach. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, like the first thing Dan mentioned, first black NBA coach, plus like the fact that he actually won, like it translated to winning too, like over 60%, you know, in the regular season and playoffs. Like that, just what more do you need to know? Like it should be a surefire selection for the committee.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a shame if they actually overlook this, but I don't think they will. Bill Russell's pretty gigantic in this world, and I think that people are going to acknowledge him no matter what he does. So, I mean, right now, let's move on ahead, guys. Usually, right now, we would do a look at the week ahead, where we look at a game or a situation. But I kind of want to do something differently. So, since we're like over halfway through the season, let's talk about one team that needs to step up the rest of the way. All right, let me go first. I really am looking at the Pelicans, man. Like the Pelicans, I thought were going to be one of those surprise team, and I feel like they had so many expectations coming into the season and just kind of tanked, man. Like they didn't live up to those expectations, and they're sitting at the same winning percentage they did when they finished last year, which was 41.7% win percentage, not good. And then they're 3.5 games back now from the last slot in the play-in tournament, which is not anywhere where I'd want them to be. And the reason why they're there is because they can't seem to figure things out on defense. I mean, 29th in defensive rating and 26th in points against is not going to get it done in the NBA. And they have some talented pieces that can play defense individually, but things aren't just clicking for them. And I think that if they really want to, prove this core and, make an argument for the future, I think they have to really make a statement in the second half. What do you guys think?
No, that's a good argument. I mean, that team was borderline last year, right? From getting into the playoffs, they just missed it narrowly. And Had Zion played some more, maybe they would have secured a spot. But this year is no excuse. You got a new coach. Zion is playing, a lot. He's on the court every single game, and obviously just an all-star too.
Yep.
Lonzo's playing well. Brandon Ingram's been Brandon Ingram. So they have the talent. They have some good individual defenders, and now it's time to ramp it up and make that push. So I agree. That's a good one. The team I was going to mention was the Mavs. Mavs are struggling right now. Only 3 games, I think, above 500 at the moment, 19-16. So I know Kristaps Porzingis has, missed some time, but he's healthy now. And, Luka, you don't want to wear him out, before the playoffs come. And he's going to have to, I think the Mavs are going to be buyers come the trade deadline. I think Mark Cuban's going to look to get Luka some help along the perimeter, because he's team's only playmaker right now. Tim Hardaway can't do much outside of the scoring, and Josh Richardson's more of a defender. So it'll be interesting to see what moves they make, but that's a team that I think has got to have a big second half.
Yeah. Henry, what's the team that you think needs to really step up in the second half?
The Mavericks, because like what Sandeep was saying, they got off to a rough start in the regular season in the first half, but they have won 8 of their last 10 prior to the All-Star game, and that's because Porzingis is back. Porzingis is finally playing valuable basketball for the Dallas Mavericks for Rick Carlisle. Luka has been playing better Luka Magic basketball in terms of the things I expected him to do at the beginning of the season. He's doing that now, so I think if they can keep this role going, because like I said, they've won 8 of their last 10. And if they play that type of, they're not too far behind the Spurs and the Nuggets too. I think that's another team, honestly. The Nuggets need to step it up. They're not the 60s. They're not 6th seed worthy. They're behind the Trailblazers, who are really solely being carried by Damian Lillard. So if there's someone that has championship aspirations and they need to prove it to everybody, that should be the Nuggets, because they were in the Western Conference Finals last year. Lost to your guys' Lakers. So I had high expectations for them. And being the 6th seed up until this point, I was not disappointing, but underachieving. So I think that's a team that needs to step it up if they don't want to, face the Lakers, the Suns, or the Jazz in the first round.
Yeah, I think that's a good one too. And another team I want to throw in the ring this team is doing good, but they could be doing better, is the Clippers. They're 24-14 right now, but they've been struggling with closing out games in the fourth quarter. They have I think one of the worst shooting percentages when it comes down to the last 5 minutes of games, and that's kind of unacceptable when you have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George on your team. You should be able to close out games, and they could have had 30 wins already. Had they closed out a few more games. We saw them blow a lead to the Warriors early on in the season, double-digit lead. They lost to the Wizards, prior to the All-Star break when they were up in that game. So they're gonna have to work on closing out games, as the second half of the season rolls around and leading into the playoffs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, that's it, folks. This episode of 3 in the Key is over. Thank you for listening. It's a bit of a sad show for us, though, because it's Sandeep's last, man. The King is leaving. We wish him good luck with all of his future endeavors. So what's going on, Sandeep? Why you gotta be just ruining the flavor here?
First of all, whether I'm here on this show or not, we still got 2 Kings on this show, and I know you guys will do a great job carrying the load without me. It's been real doing it, with you guys. Like I said, I'm gonna miss these shows that we do every week. I always look forward to them, because obviously we got great chemistry. We all get along, and it's fun. It's fun to talk with you guys. But your boy's growing up, got a full-time job, and staying in the industry, of course, but full-time boys, and that announcement will be coming tomorrow. So stay tuned on my Twitter.
Oh yeah. We're about to hit that retweet button many times.
Hey,
all right.
Hey, wait. For all the ladies that are single, Sandeep single, so hit him up. His app right there. DMs are open.
I don't think we need a live stream to promote Sandeep, bro.
No. It's a live show. I don't care.
Y'all too much.
All right. Well, Sandeep might be leaving, but Henry and I are still here. Be sure to catch us next week on Thursday, and look for our work at FineBet.com. We will see you next week.
I think we should just leave the studio.
All right. Peace out, yo.